We now continue on our own journey into more of Odysseus's story with books 3 and 4 of the Odyssey. In book 3, we encounter a couple of new characters, a father and son duo. We have Nestor, the aged counselor of the Greeks during the Trojan War. And if you remember, we met him in the Iliad. And he is still the same lovable character, the voice of wisdom and reason, and a little long winded to boot. And that does not change at all in the Odyssey. There are very many long passages by Nestor, and it becomes somewhat comical because Telemachus tunes into that as well and makes his own comments that we will encounter later on. Nestor's youngest son is Pisistratus, and he is going to journey for briefly with Telemachus as he searches for his father Odysseus. In book 3, we have basically a little more of background story with Nestor because Telemachus has gone to Pylos and sees Nestor, and he is searching for news of his father. And it's basically backtracking Odysseus's last steps. Who were the last people to see his father? Nestor serves as we said earlier, the bridge between the two poems. He is known for wisdom and storytelling, and he gives Telemachus a very good piece of advice. Why don't you visit Menelaus? Because he was the last person that I saw your father with. And so that is exactly what Telemachus is going to do. We also encounter Athena, and as we mentioned earlier, she is the goddess of wisdom, the patron saint of basically Odysseus, and because she loves Odysseus so much, she is going to care for Telemachus in that same way. But there is a difference here in the way that she treats Odysseus and Telemachus, which shows the reader the way that she places Odysseus on a higher pedestal than she does Telemachus, because she will openly appear to Odysseus. She does not typically disguise herself. However, she does disguise herself to Telemachus. Some of that is safety reasons, but then some of that just allows the reader to see the more of the love in which she has for Odysseus, and so she honors him more by appearing to her, or to him rather. In book 4, Telemachus is seeing Menelaus. Pisistratus has gone with him. He goes to see the king of Sparta. Remember that Menelaus is married to Helen. She is the cause of the Trojan War, the lover of Paris. And in a side note, it could be argued, is she really the cause of the Trojan War if this goes back to her being under a spell on behalf of Aphrodite? So that's kind of something you can flesh out later on your own. There is also Idathea, who is the daughter of Proteus, the sea god, who is interrogated by Menelaus during his travels. That Proteus is basically the person that is going to give Menelaus the knowledge of how he can get home to his own homeland, and Idathea is the one who tells him that. So that's just kind of throwing that out there. It's not necessarily anything that really furthers the plot on behalf of Odysseus and Telemachus. It's just more of a side story, but I thought that you may want to kind of refresh that in your mind, since those were two prominent characters within the book. And then there is the mention of another character from the Iliad, who is Ajax Oileus, or Little or Lesser Ajax, and he is killed by Poseidon as well. Keeping with this theme of Proteus, Idathea, storytelling, there are stories that are told within book 4 that do not, as we mentioned, necessarily further the plot, but then there are some that do, such as the story of Helen. And as she is talking to Telemachus, she reiterates her loyalty to his father Odysseus, and stresses greatly that despite her involvement in the war, she has worked to aid the Greeks, and she has much remorse for her involvement with Paris. She blames it on Aphrodite, reminding Telemachus that she did not necessarily want to be with Paris, that it was due to this coercion on behalf of Aphrodite, that she is not necessarily to be blamed as the full cause of the war. And then uh, there is a foreshadowing that she gives of Odysseus's future disguise as a beggar, because she goes back and gives the story of Odysseus as he comes into Troy disguised as a beggar, and then after he is in, sneaks in and wreaks his own havoc upon the behind the walls of Troy himself. Um, on the other side of that coin is Menelaus, who still emphasizes his anger with Helen, even though they are still married. When Telemachus comes and encounters Sparta, there is two marriage ceremonies going on of the children of Helen and Menelaus, a son and daughter. They're not marrying each other; they're each marrying another man and woman. But it is basically a double wedding. So even though this is still a time of celebration, there is anger that Menelaus still harbors with Helen for that of Helen, and presents her. She basically presents herself as a helper to the Greeks, but Menelaus presents her as a hindrance. So it's basically, yes, he, in so many words, has forgiven her, lets her come back in, but there's always going to be this little bit of jealousy, maybe, that he still has. So there's, if you're comparing that theme of fidelity versus infidelity, this is another couple that you could add to the mix, with comparing Odysseus and Penelope, who is faithful, Agamemnon and Clytemnestra, who is not faithful, and it was her choice. But then there is Menelaus and Helen was not faithful, but was it really her choice? So you have three really good couple examples to follow here. And on this last slide, you get pictures of Menelaus and Helen. And then the one in the top right corner is one basically the court of Menelaus that you have sitting there, Helen telling her story. And then over to the left, you have Telemachus, who is with Pisistratus, hearing everything about his father, Odysseus. So it's really a very beautiful portrait and painting that is a replication of what could have happened in the court of Menelaus.